Yogo Benito, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Wondergoal, the soccer betting podcast from the Action Network. I'm your host, Michael Leboff, and joining me today are my colleagues, Anthony Dabbundo and BJ Cunningham. And gentlemen, it is a great time of year on the sporting calendar. Conference championships are starting in college football. The Ashes, cricket's most prestigious and dramatic series featuring Australia and England, starts in a week. And most importantly, we have some midweek fixtures finally in the Premier League to talk about. And we'll get to all 10 of those. Plus, we'll touch on La Liga, Serie A, Ligue 1, and give out our favorite underdogs and best bets by the end of the show. But we will start things off at Old Trafford, where Manchester United are hosting Arsenal on Thursday at 3:15 p.m. United, even money favorites right now, plus 100. Arsenal, plus 285. The draw, plus 260. The Michael Carrick era is off and running. They held Chelsea to a 1-1 draw on Sunday in a game. They were very lucky to do that. They were outchanced by Chelsea by a wide margin. The defensive struggles are still there for United, but I think that people will probably see that they only allowed one goal and they held Villarreal in a good performance, in a good defensive performance, I should say, against Villarreal. People will bet into that. They'll probably bet into the Carrick revolution. They'll bet into maybe this defense has figured things out. But if you look under the surface, they really haven't. So, BJ, do you think that there's value going against United, going with United, maybe playing the total? How are you playing this week's headliner?
Yeah, I think there's value in playing the total. Probably not either side in this one. I have Manchester United projected around even money, which is where they're sitting. So I think it's fairly priced, but I do like over 3 goals at plus 125. So United have a new interim manager, Ralph Rangnick, who basically has managed all throughout Germany in his career. And he's pretty much the mentor to guys like Jurgen Klopp, Thomas Tuchel, Julian Nagelsmann. So, and he basically created the high pressing, heavy metal style football that we kind of see today with Liverpool. So it'll be interesting to see, once he takes the reins, how quickly he'll be able to transform Manchester United into maybe his style of play. I think it's going to take some time. Manchester United this season's 13th in passes per defensive action, 15th in pressure success rate, and have the second fewest pressures in the Premier League. And their defensive problems are still there. They got, like you said, they got very, very lucky against Chelsea. They basically lucked out on our Jorginho mistake to score and then gave up around 3 expected goals to Chelsea. They still have those injuries on defense. Varane's out, Shaw's out, Pogba's out. So Arsenal should be able to create a lot of chances going forward. The problem is that Arsenal in this match defensively has really, really struggled when they have to face a decent offense. So far this season, they allowed 3.17 expected goals to Chelsea, 4.22 to Man City, 2.1 to Leicester, and 3.5 to Liverpool. So for Man U, who's 6th in non-penalty expected goals and shots per 90, they should be able to create some chances against this Arsenal defense. So I have 3.06 goals projected for this one. So I think there's some value on over 3 goals at plus 125.
Yeah, Arsenal's track record against the stronger competition is what's kind of keeping me off their price. I think if it continues to go up, I'll be interested. But I do like the over. But like I said, they were outscored 11-0 against City, Chelsea, and Liverpool. And I know City is, United is not near those teams, but still a touch above the competition that Arsenal has been defeating. And they're clearly, like Anthony was saying last episode, this is a mid-table club. We should treat them as such. So I'll wait for a bigger number if I could get one on Arsenal. But yeah, I do like the over at 3. Anthony, what about you?
Yeah, I'm going to have some disagreement. I'm finally playing one of these big matches. I feel like I've been sitting out the marquee match of the week almost every week recently. Not anymore. First half, under 1 goal, plus 110. Surprised to see this at plus money. I think United's going to come out with a very similar approach to this match that they did against Chelsea, in the sense they're going to sit off, try to contest the middle of the park, and force Arsenal to break them down, even though they are the home side. I also don't really still trust this Arsenal attack, which had a good performance against Newcastle, but what we've seen from Newcastle has been that they're probably the worst defense in the Prem now, with Norwich upgrading their manager situation. They're the worst defense in the Prem, so I'm not reading too much into Arsenal's really good performance there. There are other issues that have come against good defensive sides still exist, and while I'm not calling United a good defensive side by any stretch, throwing 3 center midfielders in there, not starting Ronaldo, if they do that again, I think it's going to be very hard for Arsenal to break them down and create high quality chances. And the same thing for Manchester United going the other way. Arsenal have had their issues against teams who have very complex possession structures who are able to keep the ball and prevent Arsenal from winning it off of them. We saw that with Liverpool, Chelsea, and City. I'm not sure United is at that point right now, and I don't think they're going to be able to boss this match and keep Arsenal off the ball. Ben White and Gabriel, when they've started, have been a pretty solid defensive pairing. My questions about Arsenal are not as much defensive as they are in attack. And so I'm going to think this is going to be a slow start before it opens up. And I'm going under 1 goal in the first half at plus 110. I think it, very well could push. There's a very high chance of that, but I think more likely to see 0 than 2 here. And that's why I'm surprised to see a plus money number next to the 1.
From a top 4 6-pointer to a relegation 6-pointer, Newcastle minus 115 home favorites against Norwich City, who are plus 310 on the money line. The draw is plus 270. This is a 2:30 p.m. kickoff on Tuesday. Before every show, we pick out the marquee matchup, which is the one we just discussed. I really do think that there is an argument to be made that Norwich versus Newcastle, from a betting perspective, is the marquee matchup this week, because I can't look away from the price on Norwich City right now. Plus 310 against Newcastle, who I think are the worst team in the Premier League. I know they're at home, but this team is a mess, just an absolute mess defensively. They're allowing 1.67 expected goals per match in their last 6. Yes, the competition was tough. Spurs, Palace, Chelsea, Brighton, Hove, Albion, Brentford, and Arsenal, but still get a stop. That's what this team needs to do, and they haven't been able to do it. It's clear what this team is lacking, and it's a good defense. So you'd figure that maybe Eddie Howe coming in would be able to right that ship, but he's not that kind of manager anyway. So the appointment doesn't make sense. This team doesn't make sense. And they also don't score. Like, they don't create chances. They've created less than 0.75 expected goals for in 5 of their last 6 matches. On the other hand, Norwich City were pretty unlucky not to just absolutely bull rush Wolves this week. Yeah, it wasn't like they put up 3 expected goals, but they were the better team. Dean Smith has shown with when he took over Villa, he can organize a team to start, where he can take them from that point on. Who knows? But at least he's doing a good job of getting this team on the same page defensively. I don't think Newcastle is going to be able to score or generate much going forward. And I do think Norwich City will be able to do that against a porous defense. I think plus 310 is an awesome number. I would bet this down to maybe like plus 240. That's how much I like this number. So give me Norwich City in a bottom of the table 6-pointer. Anthony, are you joining me with the Canaries?
Yeah, I am. I like them plus a half quite a bit. 0.3 expected goals allowed is the fewest that Norwich has allowed in the Premier League since we have tracking data on footballreference.com. So pretty much their last 3 trips to the Premier League, it is the fewest expected goals they've allowed in a game. Expected goal difference has these 2 teams about even now. Think about that, given how bad Norwich was at one point in the season. Given that Newcastle's attack was actually, firing relatively well at the beginning of the season, that's dropped off considerably. My number is Newcastle plus 120 to win. So Norwich minus 120 to get at least a point here. The number's right around minus 110 right now. I like that. The other interesting thing here, Newcastle's two of their 4 starting defenders, Matt Ritchie and Jamal Lascelles, who was the captain on Saturday. They're both out due to yellow card suspension. Big loss defensively for a team that's already struggled to keep out goals. They've had goalkeeper issues. They've been rotating through Darlow and Dubravka without much success with either of them. And Norwich City, as much as we also credit Dean Smith for the improvements, we also have to credit Billy Gilmore, who's back in the side. He did not play for the last month or so, played the last 3 matches. Not a coincidence that Norwich improved defensively. He's more solid in the midfield. He's been pretty good at winning the ball, pressuring, tackles per 90. Impressive stuff from the young 20-year-old lad. Newcastle wants to have the ball, but they don't have the personnel to be good with the ball right now or to win it back. They started John Joe Shelby, who we all love for his occasional bangers where he hits 25-yard, screamers. But he adds almost nothing defensively, very little passing range, doesn't do much, pretty much just a one-man midfield of Joe Willock, and I don't like that at all against Norwich here when I need them to win and they're minus money here. So I think Norwich is the play plus a half.
Yeah, Billy Gilmore and Todd Cantwell working his way into the squad too. So Daniel Farke, for as much fun as he was to listen to after matches when his team would get blown out and he'd be all positive and stuff, he wasn't playing 2 of their better players on a team that was in a relegation dogfight. So Cantwell, Gilmore, the Canaries, let's go. Norwich City plus 310 on Tuesday afternoon at 2:30. Another Tuesday afternoon kickoff, this one at 3:15. Leeds United plus 145, home favorites against Crystal Palace plus 205. The draw is plus 230. Palace let me down this past weekend against Aston Villa. Not a great performance from them, but I think this is a good opportunity to buy low on a team that I believe in. I think is over the course of the year, you continue to back this team, I think you're going to get paid off pretty handsomely. And this Leeds team, sure, like they just had a draw against Brighton and were able to hold them in that match, but they still allowed 1.9 expected goals. This is not a good defensive team. I think Palace is, and they should be able to handle this Leeds offense. Both teams like to press. Patrick Vieira has done a great job. This midfield is really, really good for Palace. So I think 2 plus 205 is a pretty good number here to go against once again, another porous defense. And it is a pretty good buy low spot. BJ, I know you disagree with me. So tell the people why.
Well, I think we're just going to disagree on Crystal Palace every single week because I am not as high on them as you are. When I was looking at this match, the home road splits for Crystal Palace are actually quite bad. Away from Selhurst Park, they have a negative 2.91 non-penalty expected goal differential, allowing 1.48 expected goals per match. When they're at home, plus 6.47 non-penalty expected goal differential and allowing only 0.56 expected goals per match. So quite big differences between home and away. Offensively, they're still below average, 12th in non-penalty expected goals, 13th in shots per 90. But the big thing, when you're facing Leeds, you have to be good versus pressure. Crystal Palace is pretty average, 10th in offensive passes per defensive action, but the 5 matches that they've played against teams inside the top 7 in passes per defensive actions, they've only created over 1 expected goal once, and that was against Brighton at home, where they only created 1.13 expected goals. So I do think Leeds' high press will be able to be effective, especially at home. Leeds offensively, I do think they're starting to turn a corner. They're 10th in expected goals, 5th in shots per 90, 5th in box entries. But the biggest thing is Leeds is really, really bad versus pressure. They're 17th in pressure success rate allowed, but Crystal Palace only 11th in passes per defensive action and 15th in pressure success rate. It also looks like they'll be getting Luke Ayling back from injury, which is big on the right flank there, helping out defending Zaha. Also, a lot of Crystal Palace's chances offensively have come off of crosses this season. They have had the 6th most completed into the 18-yard box in the Premier League. Leeds allowed the 2nd fewest crosses into their own 18-yard box. So I have Leeds projected at plus 115. Infogol has them Leeds at 51%. So I like Leeds draw no bet at minus 130.
And we'll move on to Wednesday afternoon, 2:30 p.m. kickoff. Southampton, fresh off their drubbing at the hands of Liverpool, are plus 155. Home favorites against Leicester City, plus 175. The draw is plus 235. It's taking a lot for me not to back Southampton here coming off of that loss, because I think this Leicester defense, once again, is starting to show some real issues. And I think Southampton, a team that does press, can cause them some problems. But at the moment, I'm going to stay away from it. Anthony, how do you see this one shaking out?
Yeah, I think it's Southampton or pass. When you look at the expected goals numbers, I think Leicester's overperformance of the last 2 years over their expected goals, which was very heavily driven by penalties, is very much clouding what the perception of them is as a team. And it certainly did for me. And I had them rated 6th coming into the season, or 5th. They're down to 8th now. And at a certain point, I think I still have them too high, because I have them 3 spots ahead of Southampton. Their expected goals numbers are just not good. And at a certain point, we need to start accepting that. I understand they beat Watford 4-2 on Sunday, but they allowed over 2 expected goals to Watford, who have had an offensive renaissance under Ranieri recently, and we'll get to that in a minute. But the concerns defensively, when you look at the amount of box entries they're allowing, when you look at the amount of chances they're allowing, and the fact their attack is still very heavily reliant on quick strike stuff and doesn't really have a plan in possession to build and progress the ball up the pitch, I think it creates a pretty high-paced game. And I think Southampton is favored there at home, has some attacking regression coming. Again, created over 1 expected goal, did not score. So it's Southampton or pass. Not sure if I'm going to fire on this one yet, but definitely lean that way.
Yeah, I was with you. I was hoping that this number would sort of skyrocket after what we saw with Liverpool just absolutely demolishing Southampton. But it's not getting to that point yet. Another Wednesday Kickoff Watford 8-1 home underdogs against Chelsea -295. The draw's +450. I think this number is too high on Chelsea, but I also don't think I am going to bet against them at 8-1. Watford has been hilarious since Ranieri took over. They've had 20 total goals in their last 5 games. They've had a 4-2, a 5-2, I think a 4-1. So this team has been playing rock and roll football under Claudio Ranieri. That probably isn't going to work against Chelsea, I don't think. BJ, do you?
Yeah, probably not. I like the total in this one, over 3 goals at +125. Like you said, their matches have just been crazy ever since the 5-0 loss to Liverpool. They're averaging 2.18 expected goals per match. They just put up a way over 2 expected goals against Leicester on Sunday. They're now 9th in big scoring chances. And it's very clear that Ranieri wants to play a very open 4-1-4-1. Now, the biggest problem for Watford this season, though, is they are horrible in defensive transition, and they're very susceptible to get beat on the counter because they're the 3rd most pressured team in the Premier League, and they have the worst pressure success rate allowed. So going up against Chelsea side that has the 2nd best pressure success rate and is incredibly deadly on the counter, especially with Werner and Lukaku finally healthy, this one could get out of hand very, very quickly. And, we've talked about Chelsea offensive and defensive regression, seems like every single podcast, but they're still 3rd in non-penalty expected goals for, shots per 90 and big scoring chances, while Watford is 18th in non-penalty expected goals. Watford also down a center back and their starting goalkeeper, Ben Foster, for this match. So really, I just don't see how Chelsea's not going to put at least 2 or 3 in the back of the nets. I have 2.91 goals projected for this one. So I like over 3 goals at +125.
I think courage and more courageous is the way Watford's been playing. Like they in the first few weeks of the season, it seemed like a team that had no problem trying to be on the back foot and knew going into matches, like, we're not going to win this one. Let's just try to keep it respectable. And then Claudio Ranieri replaces Zisco, and all of a sudden there is a little bit of confidence in this group, and they're playing that way. They're playing a little bit balls to the wall. They're fun to watch, which is something I didn't think I would say 6 weeks ago, 7 weeks ago. Anthony, do you see anything of value in this one?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned it. Coming into the season, I had Watford 20th, projected them to be the worst team in the league, picked them to be the worst team in the league. Did not bet it, but I think it's interesting how they're going about it, because when you look at their numbers, they have the 3rd worst expected goal difference because they have some negative outliers where they've gotten paddled a few times. And you expect that as a team that's in the bottom 5 in the league. But when you look at them overall, they have the 6th worst goal difference. They're sitting 4 points above the relegation zone. They've notched some big wins against Norwich. Of course, the big win against Manchester United, the big win against Everton. They're getting wins enough to keep them in the league. And that's really the goal here for Watford as they turn over their squad and kind of look toward the future. But the interesting thing here against Chelsea, and this is the concern, is that when they played teams like City in the past, when the team played teams like Liverpool earlier this year, they have really struggled when they haven't been able to get out of the pressure and find the outball. They've kind of fallen apart. And if there's one thing Liverpool or Chelsea will do in this game is they will pen them in. Whereas when Watford gets beyond that first level of the press, like they were easily able to do against Man United, who had no structure or no clarity on what to do, it was very easy for their great attacking players like Dennis and Ismail Assar to break into space, create chances, score 4 goals, get Ole fired. But when they play a team who has that structure, it's very much more difficult for them. And that's when the mistakes and the lack of talent defensively tends to show. So I agree with BJ on the over. It took 2 3/4. I actually just put it in right before we started recording, -110. I think Chelsea have shown a clear difference this year too, that they don't want to win 1 or 2-0 anymore. They want to go get more and more goals. It's been a clear change when you look at their numbers playing when ahead. They've been much more aggressive this year compared to last year. And so I think that also all favors the over. And that's why I think 2 or 3 for Chelsea and maybe 1 for Watford as well. I like the over.
And just a quick word for Tom Cleverley, still playing in the Premier League after all these years, running rampant in the Watford midfield. Next up, we'll talk West Ham, -115 home favorites against Brighton Hove Albion. They're +320 on the money line. The draw is +275, 2:30 p.m. kickoff on Wednesday. Brighton hasn't been great lately, which is obviously depressing to us here on this podcast, as they were the team that we loved to lose money on last season and then won some money on at the beginning of this season. West Ham also have hit a little bit of a rough patch after defeating Liverpool going into the international break in that famous win at the London Stadium. They've lost 2 in a row to good competition, Wolves and Manchester City in a snow match. I think you're getting a decent number already on West Ham at -115. I want to wait to see if this goes to plus money. If it does, I think I will back David Moyes' Hammers. But I know it's against both of your soccer ethos to bet against Brighton. So I'm assuming that I'll probably be on a West Ham island by myself here. Is that right, BJ?
Yeah, I love Brighton plus half a goal at even money. Really, like you mentioned, really bad back-to-back performances for West Ham. Now, granted, like you said, it was against Wolves and Manchester City on the road, but only 0.67 total expected goals through those 2 matches. That's really concerning. And the loss of Ogbonna is it's very clear that West Ham's build-up play is hurting without him. They don't have a guy to start that build-up play and get it to Declan Rice, get it moving forward up to Antonio. And now they're facing a team in Brighton that's an incredible pressing team. They're 4th in passes per defensive action and 4th in pressure success rate. So it's going to be even more difficult for West Ham to actually get their build-up play going and get the ball moving forward. And Brighton, I mean, they had a classic Brighton performance on Saturday. Drew 0-0 with Leeds, unexpected goals, 1.99 to 0.8. They're still playing at an elite level defensively, only allowing 1.1 non-penalty expected goals per match. They're 5th in shots allowed per 90, 3rd in big scoring chances allowed, and 6th in crosses completed in their own 18-yard box. And that's huge because that's how West Ham creates a lot of their chances. They're 2nd in the Premier League in crosses completed in the penalty area. Brighton has been pretty decent away from home. Only 1 loss this season, which was against Aston Villa and Villa really wasn't able to create much in that match. They have around an even non-penalty expected goal differential in those 6 matches. Also looks like Enoch Mwepu will be back in the midfield. He was on the bench against Leeds, and him and Basuma playing together is a nightmare matchup for teams that are trying to beat the press and move the ball forward because they're 2 of the best pressing midfielders in the Premier League. I only have West Ham projected at plus 120. If you look at Info Goal, they have West Ham at 42%. So I think there's some value on our Seagulls at plus half a goal at even money.
Anthony, I should note that you have been betting against Brighton a little bit this season, but you're going back to the Seagulls for this one, aren't you?
I am indeed, yes. When you look at Brighton or West Ham overall, there's been a significant downturn in the last 4 or 5 matches in their passes into the penalty area. And when I look at that, I think a few things. One, okay, they played better teams. Liverpool, Manchester City, Wolves, more resistant to the kind of press and possess football that West Ham had been pretty good at playing against the mid-table and lower sides early in the season. But it also just could be some regression to what last year's West Ham team was. We talked about this. I wrote about this. West Ham playing much more like a big team this year, bossing more matches, controlling possession, progressing the ball up the field, not as reliant on transition and counterattacks. Well, you're playing a team now who plays more like a Liverpool or a City in the way that they possess the ball and the way that they prevent you from progressing the ball through the middle of the park. I think it's going to be a very difficult situation for West Ham to break down a very stingy Brighton defense. I have been betting against Brighton's attack a little bit, especially when they didn't have Maupay in there, but Maupay was back and played relatively well, didn't find the goal, but did have, like we said, over 1.5 expected goals. It was a classic Brighton performance as a favorite where they could not get the margin, but I like backing them as a dog here. So I'm back on the Brighton train for now, plus a half. I also agree with BJ. My projection, West Ham plus 125. When these 2 teams played last year, West Ham was plus 135. I'm not sure that the perception of either team has changed that much in the last calendar year. If anything, Brighton solidified themselves as a pretty solid mid-table team since then. Same with West Ham, maybe slightly better. But West Ham a little overvalued here. Think Brighton gets a result.
Off to the Black Country we go. Wolverhampton minus 120 favorites at the Molineux against Burnley. The draw is plus 255. A Wednesday 2:30 p.m. kickoff. Burnley unbeaten in their last 4. They have 3 draws in that span and a win. And they're playing better. They are starting to do what we kind of expected them to do, which is grind out wins, grind out points against teams, better opposition, make life a living hell when you're playing against them. Their defensive numbers still aren't great, but they're doing what Burnley does, which is getting results. That being said, I think I like Wolves in this one. At the moment, it's minus 120. I want to see if maybe there is a little bit of Burnley steam because they also didn't play this weekend because of the snow that came through Turf Moor. So their game against Tottenham was postponed. So I wonder if maybe the rest factor gets people to bet into Burnley, the fact that they've been a little bit better. I'll see if I can get Wolves at a plus number, very similar to West Ham, but that's probably the only way I'm looking at it. I don't think the number's high enough to get involved with Burnley. But I do want to say, I think this Burnley team is going to be a team I'll be betting on a lot in the second half of the season for sure. Anthony, how are you seeing this one?
I am surprised you are not on Burnley here. I thought this was a classic midweek Burnley spot for Michael Leboff. I was expecting that when we did the pod prep. I was like stunned when I went into our little doc that we have and I saw that you were going to be on Wolves. Potentially some regression coming for them too, or at least has come for them in terms of their ability to get the ball into the middle, into the dangerous areas on the pitch. First 5 matches of the season, they had 9, 9, 8, 7, and 8 passes into the penalty area. The last 5 matches, they've had combined 11. So we're looking at a team that is having a lot of attacking breakdowns in the final, getting the ball from the attacking third into the final third has been a big issue for them. And I'm not sure that Burnley's the team you want to play when you have that issue. So I'm passing here. If anything, lean towards Burnley to get a point here, even away from home.
Yeah, it's really hard for me to look away from that number, but I do think that this Wolves team, similar to Crystal Palace, is not being priced, I guess, appropriately. I think that they're both of these teams, I think, are teams that I will be betting on quite a bit as the season progresses. All right, moving on. Another Wednesday kickoff, 3:15 p.m. Aston Villa, 8-1 home underdogs against Manchester City, -285. The draw is +450. Steven Gerrard has sorted out Villa's defensive issues, it seems. They have allowed under 1 expected goal in both of the matches that he's been in charge in the Premier League. Brighton was one opponent, and then Crystal Palace this weekend, which is impressive. I don't think he's going to be able to do that against Manchester City, who in their own right are a great defensive team. They have allowed 1.2 expected goals total over their last 3 matches. So this City team is just impossible to break down, it seems. I don't think Villa are going to be able to. This screams of a match where Villa is going to stick to their defensive structure that they want to play under Gerrard, especially while he sorts things out. They won't. I don't think they'll be take that many risks, and I think City will be able to just kind of wait them out and claw a 1 or 2-0 victory. So I like the under 3. City unders. They haven't really been treating me well this season, but this is a team that, for all the offensive firepower they have, their defense is just so good, and they have such a good ability to just suck the life out of your opponent that oftentimes you'll see them win, 2-0, maybe 2-1. So under 3 for me is, I think, a pretty good bet. BJ, do you see anything for Gerrard versus Pep?
Yeah, it's kind of a pass for me. I do lean under along with you. Still no Jack Grealish, still no Kevin De Bruyne. It looks like Phil Foden is also questionable for Manchester City, so that obviously hurts them. Obviously, they have a ton, of depth in their attacking midfielder ranks. So you can say it doesn't really matter. Aston Villa hasn't really done much offensively in Steven Gerrard's first 2 matches. They barely created close to 1 expected goal against Brighton, only 0.45 expected goals in their 2-1 win against Crystal Palace. He's been setting them up in a 4-2-3-1. Didn't play Emil Buendia this weekend and brought him off the bench. So, this is going to be another situation where Manchester City is going to have a large share of the possession, and Aston Villa is going to look to hit him on the counter. And I don't know if they're really going to be able to do that against Man City's defense right now. So I do lean under 3 goals, but right now it's a pass for me.
I think the most interesting thing about this is, Gerrard had 2 great defensive performances, but they came against Brighton without Neil Maupay, who had almost no shot getters. And then it came against Crystal Palace, who I think we're all, except apparently Michael, we're a little skeptical of whether they can keep up these attacking numbers that they've put up early in the season. And so this is a huge step up in class and teams you're facing. But also when you mentioned the fact that, Brighton is number 1 in the league at final third possession, not turning into shots. Well, City, one of the most efficient in the league, as you might predict, at turning final third possession into shots. Now, they don't have, like BJ mentioned, some of their best attackers, but they have so much depth that I don't even think it matters. I also want to send my condolences to anyone who had the under 3 in the West Ham City game on Sunday, because that game was 1-0 going into stoppage time. And then City has a great goal from Fernandinho, who I think hadn't scored in a year. And then, of course, Lanzini puts a top bins 25-yard hit in from about a mile away off the post and in. So terrible beat if you have, or terrible push if you have the under in that game. But I think if there's a look here, it's in the first half to go the under, because I think City may pile on here late, but I think early in the game, if you're going to get a great effort and Gerrard's system is effective at keeping City out, it'll be early on in the game. Whereas I think as the game gets later, we've actually seen Villa has had more success when teams sit off a little bit, kind of just pass it around. Villa's actually had some success in those games at trying to get in like a late goal or two.
Yeah, City unders they're kind of like betting against Liverpool. Like it's almost like you always are going to see under 3 or under 3.5 as a good value play. But they're an outlier team, and sometimes you just got to treat them as such and ignore it. But I'm not going to do that. I'm going to the under here. Speaking of Liverpool, they are traveling to Goodison Park for the Merseyside derby. Everton are home. They're plus 750. Liverpool minus 265. The draw is plus 425. I canceled some for maybe some snow or something, because I don't know if I have it within me to watch Everton right now. Depleted through injuries, not playing well. Rafa Benitez obviously won a Champions League with Liverpool, so the Liverpool fans coming to Goodison Park will surely have some fun with that. It's just not a really fun time to be an Everton fan. That being said, and this is the conundrum we face every week with Liverpool, because they are such a good team and they put up all these crazy numbers week in and week out, just like they did against Southampton, their price just gets inflated. Like there are people out there, and not passing any judgment to people who bet like this, who just will say, yeah, Liverpool, I'm just going to keep backing Liverpool. I'm just going to keep doing it because what do? They basically win every time they step on the field. But this number, I think, is just too high on Liverpool once again. So I'm not going to go there. I will likely, unfortunately, miserably have a very painful bet on Everton, a small one on the money line at plus 750 at Goodison Park. And I really hope you're not joining me, either one of you, but Anthony, we'll start with you.
Yeah, Barney at the bar loves to bet Liverpool. And I don't blame Barney in this situation. I think this is a terrible matchup. I mean, the only argument you could make for Everton is that one, Richarlison will be back, so that helps the attack a little bit, pretty significantly so, in fact. But the way Everton have looked this year against teams who press them, against teams who have high energy styles, especially with this being a rivalry where you don't expect Klopp to ease up at all. And Liverpool knowing that, in this title race, goal difference may well decide it. And there's no reason to really take the foot off the gas here. I mean, this is as bad of a spot as you're going to get for Everton. Yerry Mina not expected back. Looks like he's going to be out. Calvert-Lewin still out. They did get Decore back. Damari Gray got in there. But are we still going to really get Solomon Rondon going up there? I mean, the guy had 0.1 expected goals per 90 in 5 90s. That's unbelievably bad for a striker. It's going to take everything in me to not square out and go Liverpool here. But I'm going to pass for now. We'll see how the market moves.
Everton haven't won since a win over Norwich in September. They're plus 750 to be relegated right now. They're only 6 points clear of the drop zone, and Burnley has a game in hand. Because of the snowed out game, which is just more evidence of why you shouldn't really do everything you can to avoid betting on the Toffees. But I just can't look at the numbers just too high.
Still mad about those tickets that I didn't cash fading Everton early in the year, because now they can't win a match.
But they did. That's a funny thing about this team is like their numbers overall don't look that glaringly bad. Because
when they had the good players,
right? Because when they were healthy, they had a structure that was working and their offense was going well. But since they started everyone knew their squad was thin, and as soon as they had the injuries, everything's kind of fallen to shit, and that's what we're looking at now. But BJ, that's not enough to keep you off this team.
They're really not that bad. I mean, against Brentford this past weekend, they were even on expected goals, only allowed Brentford have 5 total shots outside of the penalty, 0.53 expected goals. They still created 1.21 expected goals, despite, having basically nobody that could provide anything going forward. But at the same time, like Anthony mentioned, This is a horrible matchup. Everton's horrible versus pressure. They've allowed the second most big scoring chances this season. So going against Liverpool, that's just I don't know what to do. I'll be honest, I'm just sitting here trying to find the courage to put an Everton bet in the award-winning Action Network app. And it probably will only happen if Liverpool gets steamed north of minus 350, which could happen, honestly, before match time. Other than that, I will pass, but I'm a weak person. And if I see Everton +2 at close at, minus 110, I think I'll have to play that.
Yeah, are we going to get a +2?
I'm
really hoping we don't get a +2.
We might. I mean, Liverpool is minus 260 right now, and they're kind of in the realm of like Bayern Munich at this point when they're playing a bad team, that they will just get steamed hard at the end because people see Liverpool, they see that number, and they say, oh my gosh, this is one of the best teams in the world. Mo Salah, Sadio Mane, like how could they ever lose? And obviously in a matchup like this with Everton with all their injuries, like, yeah, of course, like that number's that high. But at the same time, we could see some hard steam on Liverpool. And if that happens, I really honestly hope it doesn't happen, because that means I'll have to end up taking Everton and watching them lose 5-0.
Yeah, this is
Everton one draw in their last 6 Premier League matches.
Yeah, it came against Man United.
Well, they had a Tottenham draw in there too, actually. So they drew United and Tottenham, but played off the park by West Ham, Watford, City, Wolves.
Yeah. It's stressing me out. I don't want to talk about it anymore. Tottenham Hotspur. They're taking on Brentford. Spurs minus 165, home favorites. Brentford plus 475 in the money line to draw, just north of 3-1 at plus 310. This is a Thursday kickoff, 2:30 p.m. The Bees, Brentford, like we just said, they really gutted out the victory over Everton on Sunday morning. They got the one goal came through penalty. They probably were a little lucky not to concede a penalty of their own. But this is a team that's kind of the opposite of Everton right now. Like, this is a galvanized team that will go the extra mile to get the result. And a lot of times in sports, not just in soccer, but in hockey, like that is something you should take into account. They are a tough team to play against. Their defense is holding up. They really are all on the same page under Thomas Frank. So I think that they can get a result here. And I don't really trust the Spurs offense, nor do I trust Antonio Conte to kind of come in and just open things up for this team to turn this into a back and forth affair. I think it's going to be more of a chess match. All the ingredients I like for a draw. It's plus 310. I think that's a really good number for that kind of bet. So that's where I'm going. Brentford, Tottenham draw, plus 310, Thursday, 2:30 p.m. kickoff. Anthony, you are a Spurs fan. Do you have confidence in them to be able to get the separation needed to cover these kind of numbers against Brentford?
No, I still think they're a little inflated here. They've been inflated for a while. They also got steamed both against Everton and Leeds. Thinking that's some new manager steam coming in there. Pretty encouraging second half against Leeds after what was an awful first half. But I'm not going to read too much into a second half performance against a team who was very shorthanded, was at home. I think Brentford has the attacking, counterattacking pieces that can get after this Tottenham team and get on the board. And if they do, it's very hard to see Tottenham scoring a significant number of goals here to cover the spread that's set at 1. There's a little bit of juice on Brentford. I'm willing to eat the juice here and fade Tottenham. I think it's the 4th time I've faded him this year, and I'm 2-1. So I know BJ, how many games Tottenham played? They played 12 games. So BJ has faded Tottenham 12 times, but he's going to make it 13 on Wednesday. This is my 4th fade of Spurs. I just really don't trust them to get margin against some of these bad teams in the Prem, and they play Norwich next. That's probably going to be a fade as well. And then they've got a Brighton road trip coming up. Not even sure they'll be favored in that one. I definitely don't have them projected as favorites in that one. So, maybe Conte will start to turn this around, and I'll have to adjust my priors. But my priors say right now that Tottenham is one of the worst attacks in the Prem. Harry Kane looks cooked. And until that changes, and I'll be watching the underlying numbers closely, I'll let you know if it does. But until it changes, Brentford +1, minus 120. Go ahead, BJ. Ran about Spurs again.
Well, as an Arsenal fan, we haven't had really, much hope over the years. So like my favorite part of this podcast every single week is coming on and just ripping Tottenham a new one. And I'm going to keep doing it until they show any sign of life, because what on earth is this number on Tottenham? This is way, way too high against a Brentford side. That's one of the more underrated teams in the Premier League. Tottenham is 16th in non-penalty expected goals, 19th in shots per 90, 14th in box entries, and 18th and crosses completed into the 18-yard box. And I think I've said that every single week, but I'm going to keep saying it until they show any sign of life. And they just lost to Slovenian side Mura in the Europa Conference League on Thanksgiving. I know nobody was really paying attention, but a 2-1 loss to a side that small is alarming. And I'd like to read a quote from manager Antonio Conte after the match. After 3 weeks, I am starting to understand the situation. At this moment, the level at Tottenham is not so high. I am happy to stay here, but we have to work a lot to improve the quality of the squad. That's basically what I've been saying for the last 2 weeks. And also, if we put that in the little manager translator that says, hey, Daniel Levy, you're going to have to open up your checkbook big time in January or else I'm gone. So, and I don't think Daniel Levy is going to do that. So the current squad he has is terrible. And basically what he's saying is I can't work with this team. So unless they improve greatly, this team's going to be, around 7th, 8th all season long. Brentford obviously, gutted out that win on Sunday, but they have a plus 3.81 non-penalty expected goal differential, which is 4th best in the Premier League, but they're somehow sitting in the bottom half of the table. The biggest weakness of the Brentford defense is they're dead last in the Premier League in crosses completed in their own penalty area. Well, Tottenham, like I already mentioned, they're 18th in crosses in the penalty area. So they're not going to be able to, get at this Brentford defense and expose their vulnerabilities. So I have Tottenham projected at plus 111. So I love Brentford +1 at minus 125. And I'm going to keep fading this Tottenham team until they show any sign of life.
Yeah, I've got Tottenham minus 120. So I'm not quite as low on them as BJ, but I'm pretty low on them too. The one encouraging thing, progressive passes total, the delta between for to against, second best of the season against Leeds. Only the Watford game early in the year was better. That's relatively encouraging. Watford, the Everton game was also the first time they were plus in that department in almost a month. So there's some possible things happening. But again, when your striker's cooked and he's only getting 2-3 shots per 90, you're not going to get enough production to cover large spreads.
Right. And also Christian Romero's out. So is Conte really going to play a back three of Eric Dyer, Ben Davies, and Tanganga?
He did.
He did. And that's just
well.
It's just not going to work long term against better, attacking sides than Mura. So I just don't. This number is way too high. I really don't understand how Tottenham is all the way up at minus 165 right now.
And that concludes the Premier League slate, the first midweek slate of the season. And it's such a fun time as we get towards the holidays. We'll have tons of midweek fixtures, Boxing Day, etc. It seems like these teams, this is when the rubber kind of hits the road for the season. The title race should start to really come into a clear focus. So should the relegation battle, and the top four, the kind of storylines will be set for the next 4 or 5 months here. All right, let's move on. There are other matches going on in other leagues, including Serie A. BJ, what is your favorite bet this week in the Italian top flight?
Yeah, I like Torino minus 120 at home against Empoli. Torino, one of the more underrated teams in all of Europe. They're currently sitting in 13th place in Serie A, but have a plus 7.3 non-penalty expected goal differential, which is 5th in Italy. The main reason for that, we talked about at the beginning of the season, but they're really, really good defensively, allowing only 0.81 non-penalty expected goals per match, which is second best behind only Napoli. They're also second in shots allowed per 90, 4th in box entries allowed, and second in crosses completed in their own 18-yard box. What I love most about this matchup, though, Torino is the best pressing team in Italy, first in passes per defensive action, pressure success rate, and ball recoveries, while Empoli offensively is 17th in offensive passes per defensive action. Torino pretty good offensively, 7th in non-penalty expected goals, 8th in shots per 90, and 5th in crosses completed in the penalty area, while Empoli is bottom 3 defensively in those 3 metrics. Torino dealing with a couple injuries. Andrea Belotti is out, but he hasn't really done much this season. Only 0.91 expected goals in 8 appearances. So I don't think his absence will be that big of a blow. I have Torino projected at minus 153. So I think there's some value on them at minus 120.
Anthony, where are you going in Serie A this weekend?
Yeah, back in my good pal, Jose Mourinho. Under 3 goals, Bologna and Roma minus 120. Here's the reality about Roma. The early season for them, I have never seen Jose Mourinho coach a team that was so open at the back, that was so willing to take chances going forward, that was so bad defensively. And then they had a couple of losses. The losses started to creep in. They lost to Milan. They blew the lead against Venezia a couple of times. They had that embarrassing defeat at Bodo Glimt in the Europa Conference League, where they lost 6-1. It was one of the worst defeats of his career. Okay, so we get an international break. Then what happens? old Mourinho somewhat rears his ugly head with his anti-football. Roma, the last 2 games, consecutive clean sheets against Genoa and Torino, 2-0, 1-0 win, much more pragmatic, much less open. And the market really isn't factoring that in here. I know Tammy Abraham has some positive regression coming in attack, but Roma is not willing to take nearly as many chances as they were prior. And it's not that different from what he did last year at Tottenham when they had that 3-3 draw with West Ham. They were playing pretty open, willing to concede chances, willing to go for more goals. They had that terrible draw, and then he was like, nope, we're shutting it down. And then they tried to grind out 1-0 wins for the rest of the season. I think maybe it won't quite be that extreme, but I think we're going to start to see something like that in this situation here. Bologna also a ton of defensive regression coming. They play open, but I'm not sure that they're going to be able to break down what's been actually a relatively solid Roma defense the last few weeks. And the numbers show it in terms of how much they're allowing teams to get out and transition against them. So I like the under 3 here. Only project 2.71. So a little under here in Serie A in the midweek.
There is also one La Liga match. It's Real Madrid minus 235 against Athletic Bilbao, who are 7-1 on the money line. The draw is plus 360. 3 p.m. Wednesday kickoff. Of course, I'm going to be backing my boys from the Basque Country, Athletic Bilbao, 7-1. I mean, this is a great defensive team. The number's just way too high, and you're getting a team that won't play itself out of a game, even against a team like Real Madrid. This team won't. They're not going to, in all likelihood, make the mistakes, make the defensive lapses that elite teams like Madrid or, the Manchester Cities of the world, Bayern Munich of the world will be able to feast on. So as long as they can stay in this game and you're getting 7-1, they can drag this thing out as long as possible. And you're sitting there with a 7-1 ticket. That's a good bet. So I'll take Bilbao plus 7-1. BJ, you come into the Basque Country with me with this one?
Yeah, absolutely. Athletic Bilbao +1. Listen, what happened in Madrid on Sunday when the Sevilla-Real Madrid match was just astonishing, because Sevilla not only should have gotten at least a draw, they really should have beaten Real Madrid. Madrid was benefited by a goalkeeping error. The ref completely missed a clear penalty, and then Sevilla also hit one off the woodwork. So 3 wonderful things went right for Real Madrid, and then of course Vinicius Jr. does what he has been doing all season long, and he finished one from way outside the box. So Vinicius Jr. and Karim Benzema have combined for 20 goals in La Liga off of 13.46 expected goals. They're very good. They're not that good. Against Sevilla, I mean, Real Madrid only created 1.28 expected goals on Sunday. And if you take away that goalkeeping error for the first goal, which led to a tap-in for Karim Benzema, they only created 0.62 expected goals off of 13 shots. That's bad. And like you mentioned, now they're going up against the second best defensive team by non-penalty expected goals in La Liga, who plays a very defensive traditional 4-4-2 and will just look to hit Real Madrid on the counter. And their style of play is very conducive to draws, because Athletic Bilbao is unbeaten on the road this season, but they have 1 win and 6 draws. And Real Madrid defensively has not been that great. 14th in non-penalty expected goals, 12th in shots per 90, 12th in big scoring chances allowed. Courtois has not been very good in net. -1 post-shot expected goal ± this year. So this number's too high on Real Madrid. I have them projected at -133. So I like Atletico Bilbao +1, which will probably be at plus money.
Yeah, Bilbao is known for its defense, but Anthony, you actually think that this offense can maybe hang with Madrid in this one?
I think BJ was too kind to the Real Madrid defense. Not that bad. They're 14th in expected goals allowed. That is terrible. And it's personnel related, but it's also, style of play related. I mean, they're just very open and dangerously open on the counterattack. They've been very vulnerable to them all year. And the Bilbao attack is the reason why they have one of the best expected goal differences in the league. We always know that they're going to be sturdy defensively, but in terms of going forward, they're in the top 4 in expected goals created this season, and they're also underperforming. So they've got a ton of regression coming in attack here. 13 goals from 20 expected. Guys like Inaki Williams, always dangerous on the counter. Athletic Bilbao have also played well against the big boys. They got a draw with Barcelona, thought they were the better team in that game. Got a draw with Atletico Madrid, also getting a draw with Sociedad. So they've gotten results against all of the big teams in this league, pretty much. They beat Villarreal as well. I think they get on the board here, and it was a little juicy, so I played both at the over team total was a little juicy. If you want to chase an over 1.5 team total, I don't hate that either, but I'm playing both teams to score here because I do think ultimately Real will get the goal at home, and minus 110 is a good number there.
It does beg repeating something I bring up all the time when we talk about Bilbao is that they don't buy players in the transfer market. They just develop them, and they have to be from the Basque country. So they are quite a peculiar and interesting club. All right, let's move on to the next part of the program. This is where BJ takes over and gives us his favorite Ligue 1 play of the week.
Yeah, well, first off, Athletic Bilbao, that process, they've never been relegated. Only them, I believe, and Real Madrid are the only two teams to never be relegated from La Liga. But anyway, let's move to France. Probably the worst match of the week, or midweek, Troyes against Lorient. I love under 2.5 goals at minus 120. These are two of the worst offensive teams in Ligue 1. Troyes and Lorient both have scored only 13 goals in 15 matches, and they're creating under 1 expected goal per match. Lorient dead last in shots per 90 and big scoring chances, 19th in box entries, and they're second to last in pressure success rate allowed. Troyes isn't a great defensive team, but they did just hold Marseille to 1.15 expected goals on Sunday, and 57% of their matches this season have gone under 2.5 goals. Lorient defensively has been a nightmare, but they're only allowing 0.96 expected goals from open play. They've just been horrific on set pieces and had some really bad penalty luck. Troyes is pretty bad off of set pieces, only 0.07 expected goals per set piece, and they've only scored 10 goals from open play this season. So it's no surprise that they're 15th in non-penalty expected goals, shots per 90, and 18th in box entries. I only have 2.07 goals projected for this one, so I like under 2.5 goals at minus 120 with two of the worst offensive teams in France.
We're getting towards the end of this week's episode. But before we do, of course, we will be giving out our favorite underdogs for the midweek. I'll go first. I can't begin to tell you how much I like the number on Norwich City against Newcastle. Newcastle is the worst team in the Premier League, and they are odds on to beat Norwich City, who are improving. They're not good either, but they are improving under Dean Smith, and they are kind of the right team to take advantage of Newcastle's glaring deficiencies. So I like Norwich City. 3-1 is a great number. I would play it all the way down to plus 240. Give me the Canaries to start this parlay off. BJ, what is your favorite underdog play this week?
Yeah, I already mentioned it. Brentford plus 470 at Tottenham. This number is completely overinflated for Tottenham. I've already said it a million times, but I'll say it again. 16th in non-penalty expected goals, 19th in shots per 90, 14th in box entries, and 18th in crosses completed in the 18-yard box. Conte does not have the squad that he wants to play with right now. They have a long ways to go to actually, basically get up to this number against a Brentford team that's very underrated. 5th best non-penalty expected goal differential in the Premier League, 4th in the best non-penalty expected goal differential in the Premier League, but somehow they're in the bottom half of the table. Tottenham will not be able to exploit Brentford's weaknesses defensively. Brentford also defensively 10th in shots per 90, 6th in big scoring chances allowed. So I think it's going to be very hard for Tottenham to create chances. Also no Christian Romero for Tottenham. So the back three is just not going to have a lot of long-term success with Eric Dyer, Davies, and Tanganga. So I only have Tottenham projected at plus 111. So I love Brentford at plus 475.
All right, Anthony, your favorite underdog resides outside of the Premier League. Who are you going with this week?
Yeah, I'm going with Udinese plus 450 on the road at Lazio. Really not buying much into Lazio this season. They are even in expected goals for and expected goals allowed. Sorry ball really not working out. When you look at how bad they've been out of possession, 15th in box entries allowed, 16th in crosses allowed into the penalty area. They've kind of been a mess defensively. Going forward, haven't been a ball progression juggernaut either. They're facing an Udinese team who I'm not going to pretend is some great team. They're very mediocre in Serie A, but their expected goals difference is actually quite similar to Lazio overall. They're a below average Serie A team. Lazio simply should not be minus 170 money line favorites against anybody in this league except the worst of the worst, which Udinese is not. So I'm hoping my guy Isaac Success can find some success in this game, and Udinese can get all 3 points on the road here. Like the price, I've hit 2 in a row, so probably gonna lose badly, but we're hoping for 3 and Udinese to get us done.
Brentford, Norwich, and Udinese. If you parlay all 3 of those guys together, 129-1. That's your holiday shopping done and dusted if all three of those teams win, which they won't. All right, let's move on to our favorite bets for the Premier League, the midweek fixtures. I'll start us off. Crystal Palace plus 205. I am a true believer in this team. I think the overall body of work is really starting to show. And yeah, they did lose last week, and they were my favorite bet last week, but I'm going to buy low on them. Plus 205 against a porous Leeds United defense, which despite a good performance in terms of actual results last week, still gave up 1.9 expected goals to Brighton. So I think that this Palace defense should have no problem scoring, and they're defensively capable enough to keep this Leeds United offense at bay. Give me Crystal Palace plus 205. That's my favorite bet. They're Tuesday, 3:15 p.m. kickoff in the Premier League. BJ, what is your favorite bet in the Premier League this week?
Yeah, I like Brighton plus half a goal at even money against West Ham. Two really bad back-to-back performances for West Ham in the Premier League against Wolves and Manchester City on the road. 0.67 total expected goals created in those two matches. The loss of Ogbonna at center back is huge for the Hammers right now. He's the beginning of their entire build-up play, and without him, they're really struggling to find that build-up play from the back. Now they're facing one of the best pressing teams in the Premier League. Brighton is fourth in passes per defensive action and pressure success rate. Last weekend was a classic Brighton performance. They drew 0-0 with Leeds, but won unexpected goals, 1.99 to 0.8. They're still playing at an elite level defensively. They're only allowing 1.1 non-penalty expected goals per match. They're fifth in shots allowed per 90 and third in big scoring chances allowed. But the big one in this one match is West Ham is second in crosses completed in the 18-yard box. Brighton is sixth in the Premier League in preventing crosses into their own penalty area. Brighton has been pretty decent away from home. Only one loss this season, which is against Aston Villa, who didn't really create anything against them. They have around an even non-penalty expected goal differential on the road in those six matches. Also, Enoch Mwepu will be back for Brighton. He was on the bench against Leeds, probably will get the start along with Basuma. And those two are a nightmare against teams who are trying to get through the press. I have West Ham projected at plus 120. So I like Brighton plus half a goal at even money.
And Anthony, I'll let you wrap up this show with your favorite Premier League bet of the midweek.
Yeah, let's go with the Canaries. Norwich plus a half against Newcastle. Norwich coming off their best defensive performance they've had in the Premier League since we've had XG data that we can track game by game. The expected goal difference on these two teams is about even. My number, Norwich, minus 120 to get a point. You can find even to minus 110 out there right now. I really like that. Newcastle is going to be down multiple starters defensively, including their captain Jamal Lascelles and Matt Ritchie due to yellow card suspension. Billy Gilmore has returned to improve the Norwich midfield. New manager bounce is underway for Norwich, who have looked better. And really, Newcastle does not fit and does not have the personnel to play the way that Eddie Howe wants to. Not really buying into the John Joe Shelby revolution here. Don't think Newcastle should be minus money against anybody. So as bad as they looked at the weekend, I'm going to keep fading them. I'm going to take Norwich plus a half, minus 110.
And that will do it for another episode of Wondergoal. We will be back on Thursday to preview this weekend's matches and get used to us because it's about to get really, really busy here in the soccer calendar as all the festive fixtures come our way. And we're happy to have you along for the ride. Good luck with all your bets this weekend. For BJ, for Anthony, I'm Michael, and we'll see you on Thursday.